Good morning, good morning, good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. It's your boy Ray G, joined as always by my partner in crime, Jordan Richards. This is Wake Up, presented by Bets TV. Happy Tuesday, not Monday. Happy Tuesday to you. It's Tuesday, September the 7th, 2021. I woke up this morning, stepped outside, and it's nice and cool in Texas. I think it's like a brisk 70, like 71, 72. And for us Texans, it feels like it's freezing damn cold outside. I was like, the kids need a jacket. I need a jacket. The kids need a jacket. It's cold. Why do they have on shorts? That's just how non-accustomed to cool weather we are down here. But Jordan, how are you this weekend? How are you today? How was the long weekend? I texted you the other day. It felt like forever since we've done this show, and it's been 3 days, and it feels like a long ass time. How are you doing this morning, man?
I'm good. Like you said, that third day, even for me when I was working out, 2 days I'd be fine. But that third day, it's a routine breaker. So if I could give anybody out there advice, it would be, if you take 2 days off, cool, but don't let it extend to that third day because it will drive you insane. It will kill that routine. But happy to be back, happy to do the show. And you notice we have a small promotion for you guys. We partnered with Drafters, and if you go over to drafters.com, go sign up for their best ball tournament. They have lots of overlay. Has to fill by Thursday, and I believe it's just over 6,000 spots right now of the almost 10,000. So go head over there, use promo code BETSTV for a 25% deposit match up to $100, so a $25 bonus. So head on over to Drafters. Again, that's promo code BETSTV for a 25% deposit match up to $100 deposit.
Appreciate it, Jay. We got a lot to get into today. NFL is back in a couple of days, a mere 48 hours, and we'll be watching the Dallas Cowboys take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. College football is in full swing. Every team has played. So far, technically week 1, but there was a week 0. We had a couple of teams play. So there's a ton of stuff to get into, and we're going to do that right after we hit the morning run.
Wake up! This is the morning run.
Run, Forrest, run!
All right, so some quick news. The Baltimore Ravens, they just seem snake bitten. Another running back injury. Justice Hill gone for the season, torn Achilles. That's coming off of the heels of J.K. Dobbins and his torn ACL. Gus Edwards is there, Tyson Williams, and now they're trying out additional running backs. I'm not sure if they've signed anybody yet, but they definitely need another running back body in there. It's everything that could go wrong for Baltimore right now just injuries all across the board. Wide receiver positions, Lamar Jackson with COVID, running backs dropping like flies. This isn't good for the Ravens, man. Even from a team morale standpoint, it's like, damn, I know it's easy to say next man up, but this isn't good for Baltimore, man. So we'll see who comes in to complement the combination of Gus Edwards and Tyson Williams, but I do think this, at least for 2021, this solidifies Gus Edwards as the top dog in that backfield for sure. I'm seeing reports that some people were worried about, his ability to catch the ball, so they're looking for a pass catching back. This is just brutal for Baltimore. And real quick, good morning to everybody in the comments. I didn't even say hello. I didn't even say hello to you all. Bruning, what's up? Let's get this size right. There we go. Bruning, what's up? Di, what's up? Stone, Evan, Jordan, Bacchus. Yeah. Good morning. But anything with Baltimore, Jay?
No, like you said it all. It's we're gonna see what happens. They're trying out Devonta Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, like these guys that are trying to make teams again. Not a whole lot going on for them. But I think the biggest problem is that it's so late in the process now. How do you bring someone along? And I was talking to a few of my buddies, and it's like, I'm just curious, what is it that the Texans are asking for Mark Ingram? Because you have to imagine he'd be at the top of their short list of guys. And they're not going anywhere. There's no hope for them to win, but he's technically, I think all indications are he's their starting running back in Houston. But what is it going to cost to get him? And I bet Houston is just asking for far too much than Baltimore's willing to pay to get him. I'm not sure what his contract situation is. It may just be too much money as well. But you have to imagine, even at, I believe he's 32 years old, 33 years old, he knows the system. He could walk in there and he could be a 7,500 carry guy. And as well, he's a great leader. You know, he's shown that on the Saints, shown that on Baltimore. And I think he'd be a great fit. But the problem is why isn't Houston willing to, put together a deal?
I also think if I'm Mark Ingram, I want the chance to start. Like, he's not playing to be a backup, right? I want the chance to be the primary guy. I want to show everybody that I can still play. So I think if he is, in fact, like the true starter in Houston, he probably wants that opportunity to ball, to play, to carry the rock, not to come to Baltimore and be second, third fiddle to Gus Edwards and Tyson Williams. So while it makes sense on paper, the familiarity with the system, he played there, he did really well there. If I'm Mark Ingram, I'm not coming to be a 100 carry back. I think I can get 200 carries in Houston, and I want to play. I'm here to play the game. So that's just sort of my take on that one. Another enormous piece of injury news, just huge. Zach Martin. I mean, I almost fell to my knees when I heard this, because this is the this is not good for Dallas on Thursday night. Zach Martin will not play. COVID-19 protocols. I'm concerned for my Cowboys. I am very concerned. In my mind, I'm chopping this up as an L already. The interior of that offensive front is not where you want to be lacking at. You've got to devote more help to Connor McGovern at that right guard spot. You've got freaks outside on the edge with JPP, with Shaq Barrett, the young kid Tyron, Joe Tyron from Washington, Tryon from Washington. Like, this could end very badly for Dallas. Dak, Zeke, the offensive line, they played a grand total of 3 snaps together in preseason. Dak has played none. He hadn't played football since he broke his ankle. Zeke Elliott hasn't played. This could be ugly, all the while Dallas is chilling and not playing and nursing injuries. Tampa Bay's been warming up in the preseason. And every time that the starters for Tampa Bay are on the field, they were on the field this preseason, they looked good. They looked real good. So for me, I am concerned week 1 about Dallas, and then they have to follow up the Tampa Bay game with the Los Angeles Chargers, which this could be a rough 2-game stretch for the Cowboys. I know for me, Jay, I benched Dak in a couple of leagues, and I know in fantasy the rule is start your studs, right? Listen, when I say bench them, I didn't bench them for Teddy Bridgewater. I draft good teams here, so I've got legitimate options behind them. But I am concerned about Dak. He has not thrown the ball in live game action. It could be ugly, and maybe he just picked up right where he left off. But this is not the team that you want to go out there and be playing around with. This is not the team where you don't want to have your best offensive weapon in Zach Martin. Like, I think he's the most, probably outside of Dak Prescott, the most pivotal piece of that offense. And to be down him, this is rough, man. What are your thoughts about Zach Martin missing this game for Dallas?
I think, honestly, it's the backbreaker for the Cowboys. What are they going to do? Are they going to bring in, more tight ends? Are they going to have 6 guys there every time? And I don't even think it matters. They could only send 3 guys, and they still may get through, because Dallas's offensive line, while it's good, it's really not good enough without Zach Martin. There's just too many talented players there in Tampa Bay. And like you talked about with the Bucs, they're humming on offense. Like, they're humming. And I honestly expect the Cowboys to get steamrolled, because it's just, there's no way you can just come off of not really playing and look really good. The receivers are exceptionally talented on both sides, frankly, but in Dallas, they're exceptionally talented as well. They would have to have an all-time performance separating, and Dak would have to be able to get them the ball extremely fast, I think, for them to really have any shot at this game. I think Zeke's going to be bottled up. He may have a couple of big runs here or there, but it's going to be tough sledding for him. Like you mentioned, Zach Martin not playing, that's going to make his job that much harder as well, not having his starting offensive guard there. It's just not looking good, and so I get why you'd want to bench Dak. It's tough for sure, and there may be a few options out there. It's tough. I'm curious to know who it is that you switched him for, depending on the league, right? But it's tough, because even when Dak has a game where he has a bad matchup, you always figure, well, the volume could be there. Like, he may have to throw the ball 50, 60 times even potentially for them to have a shot. But there is a small fear, and I'd be curious your thoughts on this as well, is if the game gets out of hand early, like let's say it's 35-0 in the first half, does Dak even play the whole second half, because he's already coming off of injury, because They're already dealing with a depleted offensive line. Is there a chance that maybe he doesn't even play the full
Nah.
game to try and have them come back?
Nah, man. I mean, he's getting paid $75 million this year. Blowout or not, you play him. Like, he needs the reps at this point. If they're getting their asses blown out, you need the reps. I think Dak is playing. And in the league that I did bench Dak Prescott, I'm starting Jalen Hurts over him versus Atlanta. I'm starting Hurts over him versus Atlanta. I think Hurts has QB1 upside this week in fantasy football. So let's pivot a little bit to the college game, man. And I think from a storyline mode, from an entertainment value, and we kind of poo-pooed on the Florida State Notre Dame game in our previews. We were like, it's going to be a blowout. Nobody wants to see Florida State. Probably the best game of the weekend. I think it was the best game of the weekend. It was a competitive matchup. The game went to overtime. And then we saw Mackenzie Milton go out there and play. And for those of you who don't know, 2 years ago, Milton suffered a knee injury, a leg injury so devastating that doctors said that he wouldn't be able to run around, practice, let alone play competitive collegiate football again at the highest level, right? The highest collegiate level that you can get to at P5 conference. And he goes into the game. He doesn't start. Jordan Travis starts for Florida State. Milton takes the field, 5 for 7, 48 yards, leading that team down the field to tie it up and go into overtime. They ended up falling short in OT. But when you just talk about from just an entertainment value, from a storyline, the shots of the cameraman panning over to Mackenzie Milton's mother, like crying every time his son took a snap, like that's what it's all about, man. That's the and here's my thing. I always say this, and people think I'm crazy, but I prefer college to the NFL. And everything that we saw this past weekend, from the jump around at the Wisconsin game, the energy, the electricity in these stadiums, 100,000, 90,000 people just cheering. The bands are playing. The mascots are jumping. Like, there's nothing like college football experience. I've been to NFL games and I've been to college games. Everything leading up to a college football game, the tailgate, the bands, the music, the school pride, the spirit, there's nothing like it. And to watch Mackenzie Milton go out there and play and, you know, running around, making plays, throwing shovel passes off script. I mean, beautiful story. If there were a comeback player of the year in college football, I think he would have won that this past weekend. And quite frankly, the NCAA probably needs to have something like that for the conference. Comeback player of the year, comeback player nationally, because I think he would have won that award last night. Literally, they did not think that he'd be able to do anything that he's doing right now. So to see that and the game be competitive, it was really dope to see. We also got to see the top quarterbacks in the 2022 class take the field this past weekend. Odds-on favorite to be the number one overall pick, the Heisman Trophy winner. We saw Spencer Rattler. We saw Sam Howell on Friday night. Carson Strong, Malik Willis was on the field. Slovis. Saw Matt Corral last night. Oklahoma pulled off a close game versus Tulane, 40-35. Rattler, I think he was 30 for 39, 300 yards passing, 1 touchdown through the air, 2 interceptions. Should have been a third. Horrible call. Carson Strong looked like the best pure thrower, but for a fantasy perspective, he gives you absolutely nothing with his legs. He's a big armed quarterback that can make all the throws out of Nevada. Sam Howell, it's so weird to watch North Carolina utilize Sam Howell in this RPO game like he's a legitimate threat with his legs. I've never understood it. I get that he can run around and scramble around, but that is not going to be his calling card at the next level. If you're dependent on Sam Howell to get you any points with his legs in fantasy football, I think that's a big-time mistake. He's got to be able to deliver that ball from the pocket. He does have mobility. He can move around. Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati looked fantastic. I think, you know, when we're talking, what's so interesting about these quarterbacks, Jordan, is I think that Carson Strong can push Spencer Rattler, if we're just talking today, to be the number one pick in the NFL draft, because I think Carson Strong fits the prototype of what some coaches may look for in a traditional quarterback, right? Big, tall, stand in the pocket, make all the throws. But the QB1 drafted, if it's Carson Strong, if it's Spencer Rattler, if it's Sam Howell, the first quarterback drafted may not be the best option for those of us in fantasy football, because I think Malik Willis, Matt Corral, we saw a little bit of that last night, and you know I've been a fan of Matt Corral for some time, offer you more off-script plays. We had an interview with Eric Crocker, and he said something that really sticks to me. What can these quarterbacks do when the X's and O's aren't there? Can they make a play on their own? Can they go get it? Can they move around, manipulate the offensive line, defensive line, and make plays with their legs, or using their legs to make plays with their arms? And I think the best two in this class at doing that, or three, and Ritter's still got a little ways to go in my opinion, but Malik Willis out of Liberty and Matt Corral from Ole Miss. So just looking at these games, it was okay. It was okay. I don't think Spencer Rattler is the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman after week one. Those rankings shift every single week. Well, what were your overall thoughts from the quarterback play and from the 2022 quarterbacks this past weekend?
I thought it was interesting because, there was a lot of guys like you just mentioned that were supposed to be these big time guys. And I don't want to put too much blame on Sam Howell because you talk about a team in North Carolina that lost their top two receivers. They lost their top two running backs. And somehow, because the odds makers decided to put that out there, they were favored in that game. And Virginia Tech was returning a lot of players. So even for me, I bet against North Carolina. I thought there was no way they would win that game. And it's just because when you lose all those playmakers, yes, you have entire offseason, but you can't just replace them like that. You can't just replace how good they were, how much they meant to that team, especially on the ground. On the ground, they struggled. And you could tell when you don't have a player like Michael Carter, you don't have Javonte Williams, it is very difficult for that offense to move. And Sam Howell, missing all those guys, it was clear that he tried to do more on his own and he didn't look that great doing it. So now we're at the point where it was kind of like Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell were the two, probably the top two for number one. We saw some Slovis, we saw some Malik Willis. You see a few other guys like Ritter up there, and I think Ritter will continue to rise because of how well he's playing. He's a proven leader. He's really the heartbeat of Cincinnati. But like you said, he's not the prototypical number one type pick, and I don't know if he'll ever quite get there. But to see Rattler struggle, to see Howell struggle, and then especially when you talk about Carson Strong, there was throws he was making that he may be the only player in college football who can make them. Now, statistically, he was 22 for 39. He threw for 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was the Mountain West Player of the Week. Doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's to watch the games, and this is where it's different between box score watching and actually watching the games. When you see some of the throws he makes just on regular plays, it is amazing. And you just look at some of the other quarterbacks, you're like, I don't think he can make that throw. I really don't think that a player not named Carson Strong can throw from right hash down the left sideline 55 yards.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it from that perspective, and like you mentioned with Eric Crocker with his interview, playing above the X's and O's, making plays that only you can make on the field, period. Carson Strong really does have a lot of those intangibles. And Spencer Rattler, for as much praise as people give him, he's not quite there yet. And I think, like you mentioned, a lot of it for him is a little bit mental. He's got a lot of talent, but mentally he isn't quite there yet.
Yeah, I think Rattler can make those throws. I do. I think he's got one of the best arms in college football. It's just sometimes the decision making is just people don't like it, but he reminds me of Jay Cutler. When I watch Spencer Rattler, he reminds me of Jay Cutler. All the arm talent in the world, can get on a tear where he's just lethal, and then all of a sudden it's just boneheaded mistake, and he too is not a dual threat quarterback. It's going to be interesting. I talked to 5 different people this past weekend, and all 5 people had different quarterbacks as the top-rated person in the class. I know a lot of people are still on the Rattler train. You have some people who love Matt Corral. There's the Carson Strong hive. You've got the Desmond Ritter hive. You still have the Sam Howell truthers. I just think this is going to be an interesting dynamic to follow throughout the entire college football season because the quarterback play in the NFL, there are about 5 or 6 teams we can name off the top of our head who aren't solidified at the quarterback position. We don't know if Jameis is the quarterback of the future. We don't know if Sam Darnold is going to be the guy in Carolina. We know that Denver needs to upgrade their passing attack at some point in time. The Detroit Lions and Jared Goff. And that's just 4. I'm just rattling off the top of my head. The Pittsburgh Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger. So this is why we're talking about these players, because these are the players who franchises are going to have to take a shot on. And I'm telling you right now, I said it last year. I said 5 to 6 quarterbacks were going to go round 1 in 2021. People thought that was crazy. I think we're going to see another 5 quarterbacks go round 1 this year. It's supply and demand. You cannot win in the NFL without a signal caller. So I think these young dudes are going to propel themselves and move up. But we made a couple of bets this past weekend, Jay. I think we were 1 for 4 in betting. So let's let's just review what happened to us with these breakfast and bets, man.
Wake up! This is Breakfast and Bets.
Prepare to do breakfast.
All right, so we had some action on the Georgia-Clemson game, and what an old-fashioned 1960s SEC defensive struggle this one was. I mean, that game was brutal to watch at some point in time for Clemson. They look unprepared. They were outcoached. I give the defense a ton of credit. Let me say the defense played well to limit Georgia, even though they're down. Jermaine Burton was hobbled. Even though they're down George Pickens and no Eric Gilbert, no Darnell Washington, the defense still played really, really well. Made JT Daniels look like the guy that I can't trust JT Daniels. He's not one of the top quarterbacks for me in 2022. But DJ Uiagalelei, the 2023 eligible quarterback, taking over for Trevor Lawrence. A lot of high expectations for DJU, and he looked like a first-year starter. He looked like a young kid who played a little bit of games last season in relief of Trevor Lawrence. But in my opinion, it's just like, damn, how good was Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne? Because we never saw the Clemson offense look like that. You know, from Watson to Lawrence, like it's been a smooth transition between quarterbacks. I know there was a little bit of Kelly Bryant in there, and even then he wasn't bad. But this just looked god-awful. I mean, they were out-coached. They were outclassed. Georgia's defense is legit. I can't wait to dive into the defensive side of them for the NFL draft because I think they've got some studs over there. It looked like an NFL defense just giving DJU fits from top to bottom. I think, wasn't DJU probably the second favorite Heisman odds coming into the season, Jay? Am I right there? DJU had the second best odds?
I believe he was tied with Bryce Young at
11
to 1.
11 to 1. That's a wrap. I mean, I know everyone's, it's just one game. If you're going to win the Heisman, you probably need to be on point every single week. Now, I don't know what this does for Clemson as far as the college football playoff push, because I think there's a good chance UCLA can run the table at this point. And if they run the table and win the Pac-12, we may finally have a Pac-12 team in the 4-team college football playoff. I think we're all expecting if Alabama can win out and meet Georgia in the SEC title game and Georgia wins out, whoever loses that matchup, that one-loss SEC team is still going to get in the playoff. Like, it's going to be two SEC teams, probably Ohio State from the Big Ten, and maybe an undefeated. I mean, if Oklahoma is undefeated, then they're going to probably put the Big 12 team in. But it's going to be interesting to see how these teams play. But what were your thoughts on DJU and why we lost? Because we took the over. What was it, 50.5? We took the over point total.
51.5, yeah.
Yeah, I got 50.5 for the over-under, and they clearly much under. And this is why week one of college football is so damn difficult. You don't know who's playing. The way that they report injuries are much different than the NFL. You don't know a lot of times until like kickoff or leading up to kickoff that a player's not going to play or he's not feeling well or whatever the case may be. It's not like that in college. But, yeah, we did not hit the over on that one. And, honestly, the reason why is DJU looked bad and Georgia's defense looked great.
Yeah, and I think you said this a few times now, and so I got to give you a lot of credit for this. There's a difference between being the guy and filling in for the guy, right? Like, and I think that's what gave us hope was that DJU last year looked really good. You know, yes, that was with Amari Rodgers. Yes, most importantly, it seems that was with Travis Etienne in the backfield, kind of protecting him, being that explosive threat. But I believe he had a 300-yard passing game and like a 250-yard passing game where against Georgia, he just got destroyed. And like Notre Dame's defense they're not bad. They have a good defense. I mean, they didn't play great against Florida State, but you know, I think there was all encouraging signs we saw last year that he could get it done for Clemson. But then, you know, it's that Georgia defense is legit, and we all knew it was legit. But where is it going to break? And it did not break in our favor at all. You know, Georgia's defense just locked down the entire game, start to finish. DJ Uiagalelei looked terrible. And so it's, what do they do now? Where do they make up for this lack of offense? Joe Nada looked good, but outside of that, I didn't really like what I saw from them. And so it's, I don't know what Dabo's going to do because I don't even think they have the personnel now. If DJU can't uplift that offense to where it needs to be, like I've always felt, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Trevor Lawrence Deshaun Watson made that offense better than it was because they were so talented. If DJ can't do that, they're going to be a pretty average team, even offensively. And so I'm just curious how that kind of shapes out. And if there's other teams that can challenge Clemson, now obviously they're 0-1, and they do have to run the table to even make the playoff. But like you said, Bryce Young is okay.
Here's the thing with Clemson. Luckily for them, here's their next 6 games. It's South Carolina State, Georgia Tech, North Carolina State, Boston College, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, and then Florida State, in my opinion, is their next real test. Florida State, and that doesn't happen until October 30th. So they've got a good chance to, and then after that, it's Louisville. We saw them last night look terrible. UConn, Wake Forest, and South Carolina. So
they got some time. They've got it in the chat too. They got to get Will Shipley on the field badly. They need him. They need him on the field. 5-star running back prospect. So we'll see what happens with them. But Bryce Young.
Bryce Young.
I know you don't want to. I know you don't want to pivot yet. I know you don't want to pivot. But 27 for 38, 344 yards, 4 touchdowns, and currently this is on DraftKings plus 400. The Heisman favorite. The Tide rolled over Miami 44-13. And it was a beatdown from Bryce Young. I don't even think we did not expect this. As much as we loved Bryce Young, the prospect, as much as we hadn't seen him play that much, and we talked about it. We never saw him play that much. I believe you said he had under 150 passing yards last year. Mac Jones took all the snaps, didn't waver in his job security. But then, again, Bama, they do what they do. They bring in their next man up, and he lights up, a top 50 team in the country.
Yeah, man. This was so I lost multiple bets on this game because I did not think Bryce Young was going to go out there. I didn't think they were going to ask him to throw the ball 38 times. I mean, if you told me Bryce Young was going to throw the ball 30-plus times, I took the under his passing yard totals, which was 325.5. If you told me Bryce Young was going to throw the ball 30 times, I would have taken the over. He sets the Alabama record for most passing yards in their first career start, besting Mac Jones, who Mac Jones bested Tua, who Tua bested Jalen Hurts. So he's already at the top of that pantheon of Alabama signal callers. Listen, man, I'm watching this kid, and I'm not trying to overreact. Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees' level of accuracy and poise, Russell Wilson's mobility and, to see the field move around, he looked great. He looked fantastic. He looks like right now, if I was going to bet my NFL career as a GM, as an owner, as a coach on a quarterback, I'm taking Bryce Young over Uiagalelei after this one game, just the poise on the biggest big stage, primetime ABC matchup. First career start, first for real time playing in a game. At least DJU got legitimate experience versus Notre Dame last year. And I think in that game, he threw for more yards on Notre Dame than any other quarterback had thrown for them in the entire season, maybe up until they faced Alabama in the playoff. But Bryce Young, And here's the case for Bryce Young to win the Heisman, which it's really difficult for Alabama quarterbacks to pull that off because there's so many different pieces there. But Brian Robinson, I took the under on Brian Robinson over. I think his over-under yardage total was 90-something. He's never even eclipsed over 80, I believe. That did hit. But Brian Robinson, 12 carries. Trey Sanders, 8 carries. Jace McClellan, 9 carries. Roydell Williams, 6 carries. And that's what I've been saying about Alabama for the longest. This is going to be an RBBC, running back by committee. Bryce Young is the straw that's going to stir the drink. This dude looked, again, Crocker just gave us gems, right? Can they play above the X's and O's? When the X's and O's aren't there, DJU looked lost. When his first read wasn't there, he just stood there. He just stood in the pocket, legitimately. At least the sorriest of sorry quarterback, we get mad because he won't stand in the pocket. Jalen Hurts just one read and he runs around. Hurts won't one read. I'd rather you one read and run than one read and stand there in mud, in stone. And DJU just stood there. And I get the offensive line didn't play well. Shame on the offensive coordinator for not doing more things to get him on the move, to get him outside on action. But Bryce Young was manipulating the pocket, dropping dimes. He throws a 90-something yard touchdown pass, and he just kind of like walks up the field, taps his offensive lineman. I'm like, yo, this kid is the truth. California, Mater Dei High School. It was a great start for Bryce Young. And I don't know, what were his odds were, you said 11-1 going into this game, and now they've dropped down to 4-1?
Yeah, he's past Rattler. Rattler's at 8-1, and I believe DJU is 14-1. And then now even CJ Stroud is 25-1 after his game on Thursday. So Bryce Young, clear favorite. And honestly, it showed. And to give you a little bit of credit, we did hit the spread. We called that 19.5, and they covered pretty easily.
We did.
But we didn't call the over, and it didn't quite hit the over. I mean, Alabama decided to stop scoring, which is annoying, but that's okay. But it's really that 94-yard touchdown.
Okay.
Like, if he didn't hit that, you would have been fine on that number.
I've got something that people need to do now, and I'm about to put a couple. I'm saying this live. I'm probably during the show. I'm probably going to put 2 units on this, okay, or at least a unit on Matt Corral to win the Heisman. He's still plus 2,000, plus 1,500. Some books, Matt Corral, and I think I had a dream about this. I don't know if it was on this show or if it was on a DD show, Destination Debbie. But I remember saying, it may have been this show, I said, if Ole Miss can beat Alabama, I think I said that, if Ole Miss could beat Alabama, Matt Corral is going to win the Heisman Trophy. Like I said, if they can. They looked great last night offensively. Defensively, we'll see how they can hold up, but they will meet. And I don't know when. Let's see when they play Ole Miss. They play Ole Miss October 2nd. So Alabama's got a cakewalk this weekend versus Mercer. Then they get Florida, which won't be an easy task. Then they have Southern Miss. And then it's in Tuscaloosa, October 2nd. But remember this. Let me put some narrative around this. The last number 2 that went into Tuscaloosa, that kind of ran around, that had the moxie, that could play above the X's and O's. Do you remember who the last number 2 was in the SEC that went to Tuscaloosa, that could run around, that had the swagger factor and took down the Tide at home? You remember who wore that number, that jersey number?
No, I don't. Number 2 is drawing me blanks.
Johnny Football, baby.
Not
Johnny Football. Johnny Manziel.
Don't make those comparisons, man.
I'm just saying.
Corral.
I love Matt Corral. I think I'm going to place this bet today, Matt Corral for Heisman, because I think there's a chance Alabama's defense is legit. I mean,
they're damn good.
They
Turn
good.
10 starters.
When they say it's the best defense Nick Saban has ever had, that's high praise. But Matt Corral, you can still get Matt Corral on what is this? Is this DK? Yeah, DraftKings plus 2,000 to win the Heisman Trophy. And here's the gap. This is why this is intriguing if you can catch it. Plus 2,000 are the best odds that I'm seeing, the best pricing. Plus 500 on some other books. That's a 1,500 gap right there. I mean, some books are like, dude, this dude, after what he did on Monday night, we need to be talking about Corral. So I think Corral is legit. Long Beach Poly kid. I'm just a fan already. Knowing that he went to Poly, seeing how he played last year with Elijah Moore, I think the kid is the truth. So we're going to continue we're going to get a bet tracker. We got to see how much we win people this year. We're starting off, bro. Got to get the shit together.
It's okay.
Man.
We got our first dub. That's all that matters. We got to get the train rolling.
We get the train rolling, but let's get into the AFC West preview. There's a lot to get to there, so we need to beat the rush, baby.
Wake up! This is Beat the Rush.
All right, AFC West. Who do we have in what is this? Oh, these are wide receivers. Excuse me. I'm putting the wrong thing on the thing. All right, AFC West quarterbacks. Let's just talk about the quarterbacks in the AFC West. Loaded at the top, right? It's Patty Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes at over under 5,500 passing yards. Justin Herbert 44.50.5. Teddy Bridgewater, I see the asterisk there. So are these Jay Rich projections right here at 38.50? Jay Rich projections 38.50, and then Derek Carr at 4,025.5 passing yards. Over under regular season totals for these AFC West quarterbacks. We have Patrick Mahomes at FTN projected for 5,096 yards. Justin Herbert, a little bit under what the odds makers have him at 44.33. Teddy Two Gloves at 32.06. Yikes. And Derek Carr, a little bit higher. We're a little more bullish on Derek Carr at FTN with 42.36. Where are we at? Because this is going to just be shootout. We know that John Gruden wants Derek Carr to be Patrick Mahomes so bad and air the ball out. He just is not that. Teddy Two Gloves, I'd say, what's the over-under starts for him this season? 9 starts, and then they bring in Drew Lock.
That's the question, right?
That's the question.
That's why the numbers, that's why I couldn't find the number, is because the books don't want to throw a 3,300, 3,500 number up there without knowing if he's going to start. Now, it's important for people to know, we're doing a promotion right now at FTN. If you go to FTN.com, whether it's FTN Fantasy, FTN Bets, FTN Daily, promo code WAKEUP will get you 20% off any of the packages. So any package across the entire network, promo code WAKEUP, and you can get 20% off at FTN, whether it's FTN Bets, FTN Daily, or FTN Fantasy, to go check out some of these great stats that we have, the projections. But we'll start with Patrick Mahomes, because I remember when we first started talking about Patrick Mahomes on another show, we were talking about how his over-under was like 5,000, and there's higher numbers than this. Like, I believe our projections at 50, 96 are still above every book, but there is 50-50 out there. There's 50-25. I forget where this number's at, but 5,000 passing yards, even as a bench line for a quarterback, is absolutely insane. And it's so difficult for me to say, yes, I want to take that bet, because while I know he can hit that number, it is so high. Like, I'd much rather take Justin Herbert's number at 4,450, because I believe he too can throw for 4,800 to 5,000 yards. Except you don't have to take that $5,000 number from the books just to make a little bit of money off it. So it's one of those things. I'd love your thoughts, because it's so hard for me to say that I am confident he will hit 5,000. Like, I'm confident he will hit 4,600, 4,700, 4,800. But 5,000 is a very high number for an over-under.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But my thing is, if there is a quarterback that can do it, it's Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. But what's so crazy about that is how does he get there with really 2 weapons? It's Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. And if you give each of those 2 wide receivers, and I'm just saying Kelce's a wide receiver, I know he plays tight end. If you give those 2 1,500 yards apiece, just 1,500 yards flat, there's still 2,000 more passing yards to go around. Like, where does it come from? You know what I mean? Like, legitimately, are we thinking McCole Hardman's going to go for 1,000, or, you know, a combination of Hardman, Robinson? I don't even. Maybe that combination gives you 1,000, right? Robinson and Hardman, they give you 1,000. We still need to find another 1,000 yards out there. The running backs.
That's the problem.
That's high. And I know he's hit 5,000 yards before in one fewer game in 2018, but he also, I mean, 50 touchdowns and that's just crazy, right? That's just banana land numbers from Patrick Mahomes. Last season, 4,700 yards. I'm with you. If I could get like 47, I'd feel comfortable with that. If I could get even 48, if I can find Patrick Mahomes for over under 48, I'd feel better about that. But, man, 5,000 is just so many passing yards. But he gets an extra game, man. My thing is, I'd rather just place another bet, right? I'd rather at minus 111, I'd take Derek Carr over 4,025 before I take Patrick Mahomes over 5,000. That's even though we've got him projected for 5,100. If I'm going to take that pricing, I'd feel a lot more comfortable with even Herbert at 4,450, because this is going to be a slugfest. I think they are going to shoot the ball out. Think about it. Herbert gets the Cowboys week 2. I mean, he could literally light them up for 4+ in that matchup. And he's got Austin Eckler back. And listen, those passing yards at the end of the season, I don't give a damn how he gets there. Those screen plays to Austin Eckler, having him back for a full season. Keenan Allen, Jared Cook can still stretch the field. You got Mike Williams, who's going to do his thing down the field. The addition of the Palmer kid, Josh Palmer out of Tennessee. I mean, I like 44.50.5 for Justin Herbert. I like that line. I feel more comfortable with Herbert over that than Patrick Mahomes. So that's sort of where I'm at. I'm not touching Denver. I'm not touching Teddy Bridgewater or anything, because I just don't know how long he's going to start for. I have no clue. If Teddy has 2 bad games, the crowd is going to be calling for young Jeezy rapper himself, Teddy Bridgewater. And if that's the case, I just don't think I want it, man.
Yeah, and so the reason why I threw that number out there was I was just curious what you think of if he does play the whole season. If he hit, I believe even if he hit 3750, it would be a career high in passing yards for Teddy Bridgewater. But it's important to point out that he was the number 2 quarterback in adjusting completion percentage. We pulled the numbers from ftndata.com, adjusted completion percentage. Number 2 only to Aaron Rodgers at over 80%. Drew Lock was dead last at like 65%. So again, Denver and their situation, I don't know how their coaches feel about that kind of stuff. They said that Teddy's the guy, and like you said, for now, we don't know when they're going to go back. But the data is telling us that while we don't view Teddy Bridgewater as a high ceiling quarterback, he's a very efficient quarterback, and he's a talented quarterback. And I think you may agree with me here, you may not. I believe his weapons and the players he has around him can make up for his perceived ineptitude as far as his ceiling. I think Jerry Jeudy can take a slant to the house that Teddy can hit him 10, 15 yards down the field. I think that Noah Fant is going to be a beast from the tight end spot. I think KJ Hamler can stretch the field and Teddy can get him the ball. I think that Cortland Sutton is still going to be the deep threat that we want him to be. So to think about all those guys, not to mention Melvin Gordon out of the backfield, Javonte Williams out of the backfield, all of these playmakers, they may not need a super high ceiling quarterback to still have spectacular seasons. And just for me, I think that they're going to be in good shape with Teddy at the helm. And I hope that they don't start flip-flopping simply because they think Drew Lock has that higher ceiling. But clearly, he's shown he hasn't been able to deliver the ball effectively. And that's what's going to slow down that offense more so than Teddy's ability to stretch the field.
So have you seen that commercial with what's his name? The black comedian. God, his name is escaping me. But it's the commercial basically where he's like, what's his name? The black comedian. Like there's not a million of those.
I was
right?
like,
who are you talking about? Kevin
start naming black
Hart? Yeah,
comedians,
black
like Dave
comedians.
Chappelle, like
No, I
Eddie
have his
Murphy.
name. No. Tracy Morgan.
Tracy Morgan. Okay.
Have you seen the commercial where he's pretty much like, do you want to be certain or pretty sure? And I'm pretty sure those are Dolphins. Like, I'm pretty sure Teddy can start all season, but I'm certain Patrick Mahomes is going to start. I'm certain Justin Herbert's got that job for 17 games. I'm certain that Derek Carr is going to start. I am pretty sure that Teddy's got the job. I don't want to be pretty sure. I want to be certain. So for me, and appreciate you, Mr. Smith, for the comment, Teddy has the easiest strength of schedule out of all the QBs. Maybe. I'd say that Denver has the easiest schedule. I'm just not certain that Teddy's going to be the guy throughout the entire season, whereas I'm certain that it's Herbert. I'm certain that it's Patrick Mahomes, and I don't want to be pretty sure when I'm placing money on these players. I want to be as close to certain as possible. So for that, I think I'm going to pass. I saw you trying to hold it in. You did a good job trying to hold that sneeze in. I want to be more certain than not that the quarterback is going to play majority of the snaps that season. But let's take a look at the AFC West running backs right now and the projections for these rushers. And again, you know, you see these lines, and the first thing I'm thinking is, oh, hell, like for my fantasy rosters, like this is it? This is all we're getting? That's the first thought. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 900. And real quick, I mean, if Kansas City can go back in time, if they can just like rewind, do you think they would have taken Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round, like in passing up Jonathan Taylor, even DeAndre? Like, think about they had him. They wanted a running back. Jonathan Taylor's like right there. He's right there. Just JT in Kansas City would be insane.
Yeah.
Like Disney's got a new show, What If? They need to do a What If Kansas City Chiefs. What if Kansas City drafted Jonathan Taylor? They would have won the Super Bowl last year. But let's get back to the running back that they did draft. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I still like him. I'm still a Clyde Edwards-Helaire fan. I think he could be a dual threat weapon. But his price was as high as it was ever going to be week 1 of last season, where he had like 150 against the Patriots, and you couldn't even trade Christian McCaffrey for him straight up. I should have done that in every league. But his over-under rushing yards for the season, 900. We have him projected at 896. Austin Eckler's line is at 800.5. We have him projected at 799. Javonte Williams, The odds makers have him at 750.5. We have him projected for 847. And then Josh Jacobs projected at 1,000 and it's 7th by FTN. And the odds makers have him at 1,000.5. Where are you at with these AFC West running backs, the over-under total for these guys? Because if you're asking me right now, I like Clyde's over. I think Javonte Williams has a chance to hit the over, and I also like Josh Jacobs as the over. Not sure about Austin Eckler. I don't know if he's going to get the rushing volume. If those were receiving yards, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, he'll get close to the over. But rushing, I don't like 800 yards for Austin Eckler. I mean, he's never even had, I don't think he's had 700 yards. And Evan just said, he said Eckler's never had over 600 rushing yards in a career in a season. So I was even a little bit bullish. I thought it was like 700, but don't like it for Eckler. I do like it for Jacobs, Javonte, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Javonte minus 125 price. Wow.
Yeah,
interesting.
It got bet down a lot already on that book. So it's going up, and I may not move that much, but the price isn't as good as it used to be.
No.
You're talking about Clyde. Clyde, 181 carries last year for over 800 yards. He's still going to see light boxes. It just comes down to is how much do they want to run and how much is going to be used. There's still Jerick McKinnon there who will probably get a little bit of work. He looks good in preseason. There's still Darrell Williams. But I think that this year they need to see if Clyde's the guy. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of talented running backs, and while two of them are hurt right now, and one of them is going to go crazy in Indianapolis, Clyde still has to prove a little bit that he was worth that pick. And while I know that Patrick Mahomes can go out there and sling it 45, 50 times a game and KC will win, I think that they need to give Clyde a better shot than they gave him last year. His carry count really went down when Le'Veon Bell came around, and there was like all these small little things. He had dealt with a little bit of injuries, but I think that number is very beatable for him. I believe he had 816 with that shortened season because he did have a couple injuries, was banged up a little bit. With that additional game,
I think he missed like 3 games. I think he missed like 2 or 3 games towards the end of the season. They improved their offensive line as well. Like, let's not forget, they improved that offensive line. And you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's going to be light fronts. You're not going to leave Tyreek Hill one-on-one without safety help. You're not going to leave Travis Kelce against an outside linebacker or safety one-on-one. They will shred you if you do that. And say what you want about McCole Hardman. He still takes the top off of defense as a deep threat. This is it for Clyde. Like, this is his season, and I am a believer. I think he will exceed and eclipse 900 rushing yards on the season. And I think, and this is just pure speculation, right? I'm not certain about this one. Maybe they learned a little something in that Super Bowl that you do have to establish the run a little bit more than what they've been doing, right? So I think with an improved offensive line, with the pass-catching weapons that they do have, primarily Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, I love Clyde's line, man. I love that. I would take the over. Josh Jacobs just sort of – I don't think he's what we wanted him to be as far as fantasy is concerned, but he's gone over 1,000 yards every season of his career. I know Kenyon Drake is there, but I still think Josh Jacobs exceeds this total. I mean, I would take the over on Clyde. I'd take the over on Josh Jacobs, and I do think that sooner rather than later, and we're seeing all the glow and buzz out of Denver about Javonte being the guy, I think they're going to protect Teddy a little bit. I don't think Teddy's going to throw the ball around a ton. Week in and week out, and they're going to utilize those running backs. So I love that line. The only one that I'm not high on is Austin Eckler.
Yep. Eckler's never hit over 557 yards in an entire season. So you think about that, that's very bullish for Eckler. There's no way I'm taking that number. I believe his over-under receiving is 600 yards, which I'd feel pretty good about. I think he can hit that number. But yeah, the 800 at rushing, no way. I'm not even going close to it. I'd be smashing the under.
Okay. Well, let's you want to talk about some wide receivers?
Yes.
The alpha wide receivers. The alphas.
The alphas,
Kelce,
baby.
Travis Kelce, Keenan Allen, Jerry Jeudy, Darren Waller. Those are the alphas. Travis Kelce over under 1,300.5. Keenan Allen 1,050.5. Jerry Jeudy 900. Darren Waller 1,050.5. Over. Over all 4 of them, in my opinion. Over all 4. And I'm not even thinking twice about it. Like, over Kelce, over Keenan Allen. And I know Allen didn't have 1,000 yards last year. He's never has 1,000 yards, it seems like. Jerry Jeudy, 900 yards is disrespectful. And Darren Waller at 1050, I'm taking the over, even though we've got him projected a little bit less at 1027. Where are you at with these alpha wide receivers?
I love it, man. I love the alphas. Keenan's gone over 1,100 three times in his career, 4 times in his career. He's gone over that number of 40, 50. He's been right there. Even as a rookie, he went for 44 or 1046. Then over almost 1,200 three of the last 4 seasons. Last season, you mentioned the only season he didn't go for 1,000. Keenan with Herbert for a full year, it's going to be disgusting. It's going to be just disgusting. He only played 14 games last season. If he plays a full 17, he could easily hit 1,300 yards. Love the over there. Travis Kelce, same projection as Tyreek Hill, 1,300 yards. I'm smashing the over, especially seeing the 5,000 yard number for Patrick Mahomes. I'm not sure how the books managed to make those numbers work, like we talked about, but give me the over on Kelce. I think he could be in for 1,500 this year, easy. Jeudy, the reason why I put Jeudy with the alphas is I think this is the year where he kind of takes over for Courtland Sutton. I think that he kind of established himself last year as a primary target, and I think that further develops even with Sutton there. Sutton is actually projected for more yards, but our projections had them a little bit closer than the bookmakers' projections. So I made the call. Jerry Jeudy's going to be the alpha for Denver.
I love it.
I think and especially with Teddy at quarterback, I think that's a more realistic outcome than Courtland Sutton, where I think Courtland Sutton is more a Drew Lock favorite than a Jerry Jeudy favorite, right? Darren Waller is going to be, he could easily be the best tight end in fantasy football this year. And I don't think that's hyperbole. No. Because Travis Kelce, as good as he is, Darren Waller is really the only guy there. And people can talk about Brian Edwards. They can talk about Henry Ruggs. They can talk about Josh Jacobs getting receptions maybe one day. But Darren Waller is going to see 150 targets, probably guaranteed. And for that reason, I'm taking the over. I think he can easily hit that number of 1050. I know our projections have him for 1027. I'm not concerned about that. FTN needs to bump the projection for Darren Waller because it's too low, and especially with Derek Carr being at 4,200 yards projected, where are those yards going if they're not going to Darren Waller? Darren Waller's going to be a smash at 1020 or 1050.
Yeah, I love all of these, and it's we got a comment saying that talking about Courtland Sutton. So let's get into the AFC West betas. The AFC West betas. Tyreek Hill, he is not a beta. Tyreek Hill is the
someone
alpha.
had to be a beta.
Tyreek Hill is the alpha. No, listen, Hill 1,300 over. Mike Williams, his odds, his line is 875.5. Courtland Sutton projected for more. Odds makers have him as the alpha with 1,000 yards, and yes. Henry Ruggs 725.5. Tyreek Hill, I think we both feel confident that if he plays, if his hamstring, just keep his hamstring on ice the entire season. Please just keep his hamstrings together. Tyreek Hill is over 1,300, right? I'm with that. Mike Williams, not sure. Courtland Sutton at 1,000 and Henry Ruggs 725. I'm going to kick it to you and ask you what you think about these.
So I think Mike Williams comes down to what do you expect from Justin Herbert? Because we talked about how we like his number on the over. But with Mike Williams, it's been a few things. He's dealt with a bit of injuries. He hasn't been the most consistent wide receiver. In fantasy especially, he hasn't scored the touchdowns, which is super annoying. But I think if there's one that I can count on for Mike Williams, it's that he's probably going to get the yards. He went over 1,000 yards in 2019. He only played 11 games last season and still got 750 yards. So to think that he only has to get an extra 150 with an extra game if he's healthy for a full year, it seems like a more than beatable number. Oh, sorry, he only started 11 games. He actually played 15 games last season, my correction. But even with that extra game, I think with Herbert at the helm, a lot of guys can go over on that team because Herbert is a guy who can just throw for a ton of yards. I do like that Henry Ruggs number, though, and I want to know what you think. Being that Vegas fan, I think that's a more than beatable number for a guy that we expect to get a larger role in that offense now in year 2. They just recently cut John Brown because he realized he wasn't going to play, probably because Henry Ruggs was looking good in camp and making plays. And Derek Carr still does throw the ball accurately deep, and he is a great passer. While he is a lower volume guy and doesn't throw deep very often, I think they will take shots and they will be connecting with Henry Ruggs down the field. But that's where that 725 is a decent number, but I'm willing to bet the over, and I think he could hit 850 to even 900, assuming that offense takes a step forward and Henry Ruggs develops a little bit further as a wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I'm with you on Ruggs. I do think And even if he doesn't, I think John Gruden is going to try to make it happen. He's got to justify that pick, right? He's the number one wide receiver taken in 2020. So I think they're going to force feed him. And from what we've seen, we can only take the information that we have. He's performed very well in training camp. I've seen a couple of highlights. He's getting down the field. Maybe Derek Carr. And with Henry Ruggs, I mean, he can get there. I mean, there's a couple of games this season where Henry Ruggs will have 4 catches, 152 yards, and 2 touchdowns, right? So he's halfway there with those 2 blow-up games, so he just needs a little more consistency. I do not think Henry Ruggs is a bad wide receiver. He just never should have been the first wide receiver drafted. He's got a skill set that fits the NFL. He could stretch the field. He's got elite-type speed. So I do think there is a very real possibility 900 yards is within Henry Ruggs' range of outcome. Here's something I want to ask you. Mike Williams or Austin Eckler, more receiving yards for the Chargers?
I think you have to go Mike Williams. Austin Eckler going ahead of Mike Williams as far as receiving yards would be pretty crazy because Mike Williams is a downfield threat, right? He averages almost 16 yards of reception for his entire career. He had one season in 2019 where he was over 20 yards of reception. So, I get that Austin Eckler is probably going to see the volume. He could see a stupid amount of targets. But to think he's going to go past Mike Williams in receiving yards, I'm not willing to make that bet. You want to take the receptions. You want to even take the touchdowns because Mike Williams hasn't been scoring touchdowns. I'd be willing to maybe give you that. But receiving yards would be pretty wild, and that would be like RB1 consideration for Austin Eckler if he hits that 850, 900 yards receiving.
No, if he gets 850, 900, you're like the RB1 in fantasy? No, he's not going to have the rushing yards to hit that. But I do think a good bet would be, just a fun bet who has more receiving yards, Mike Williams or Austin Eckler. I think the difference is when Eckler was having 90 receptions in a season, he was playing with Phillip Rivers, right? And Phillip Rivers was, at that point in time, Drake album cover with the babies. Phillip Rivers was making babies and checking it down. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if Herbert is going to be as inclined as Phillip Rivers was to check it down. But I just thought that would be an interesting line to kind of talk about what you thought Mike Williams or Austin Eckler for the receiving yards. And again, Tyreek Hill, do we even need to dive into 1,300 yards for Tyreek Hill? I mean, the fact that you put him over here, I am utterly disgusted and offended because Reek is top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. 1,300 yards, easy money. What was Kelsey again? Tyreek Hill is 1,300.
They have identical numbers.
And they have identical numbers. Yeah, I'm taking the over on both of those. Someone
had to be the beta, and Kelsey had seniority, so I had to put Kelsey as the alpha. So. Yeah, but again, it's pretty crazy to think that they're only at 1,300 because 1,500 is very much in the range of outcomes for both of them. And if Mahomes is going to hit 5K, that's easy money as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, that's the AFC West preview. Real quick, who do you think just wins that division? I mean, we didn't really talk about that because I think it's a foregone at least we believe Kansas City. Kansas City.
Minus 250.
Last season, minus 250 for KC. Last season, they were 14-2. Raiders 8-8, Chargers 7-9, and then the Broncos 5-11. But yeah, it's Kansas City who we believe are going to win that division. AFC West is a wrap. We've done the AFC South, AFC West. We need to do the AFC East and then the AFC North. And we've got football this Thursday again. Dallas Cowboys and the Bucs kicking it off. Yeah, man. I gotta get my heart ready for that one because it's gonna be rough. We appreciate everybody tapping in to the show this morning. Thank y'all for being here. I hope y'all have a great start to your week on this Tuesday, shortened week. Get excited. More college football this weekend, more NFL talk, more player props, more bets, more money, more fun. Thank y'all. Wake up with us tomorrow. We out of this thing. Peace.